And thank you to our sponsor, Millesima. Millesima, bringing fine wine to you. Find out more information by visiting their website at www.millesima-usa.com.
I knew Bob was onto something because he had a golden touch. And the things that he thought about and the things that he did with his enthusiasm, with his spirit, with his vitality, they tended to work out.
There's only one Robert Mondavi. There's just one. And why is that? This is a man who rode the crest of the wave eternally. He was a man who always had his vision. It was always intact. The world could be crashing around him, and he was always positive.
So you'd be at events, and Bob and Margaret would walk by, and somebody that I was talking to that I didn't even know, but we were talking, would be like, is that Robert Mondavi? Is that Robert Mondavi? I said, yeah, that's Robert. And he goes, wow. And I said, would you like to meet Robert? And he, oh, no, well, no. Robert wouldn't talk to me. And you would gather him up, wander over to Bob, tap him on the shoulder, he'd spin around, and that person was Bob's best friend for the next 5 or 10 minutes.
We were at a concert, and we were sitting out on a lawn, and the gentleman that I was with said to me, you know, Robert Mondavi just sat down next to you. And I turned over, and there he was. Robert Mondavi was sitting next to me. So this guy said, hey, Bob, you got to meet David Duncan. And he said, do you know David Duncan? And Robert Mondavi turned around and said to me, no, I don't know David Duncan, but I should. And shook my hand. And it was the most warming thing that anybody had ever said.
He promoted Napa Valley, and it wasn't just promoting you know, actually just his winery. He was our spokesman, and that's what probably put us on the maps faster than, you know, Sonoma and so forth in many ways.
You know, you remember him saying, I know that we can make the best wines in the world and compete with the best wines in the world, and he was not satisfied unless his winery was doing it and all of us were doing it.
He would take such good care of our customers. Like if I had a Mondavi on the list and he saw somebody in their restaurant had a bottle of Mondavi on their table, he'd buy it for him. And then the guests would go, who bought my wine? Robert Mondavi bought your wine. And they'd be like, oh my God.
And his special salad, now get this, it's fairly complicated, was romaine lettuce, baby hearts of romaine lettuce, tossed with a little bit of lemon vinaigrette, little lemon, extra virgin olive oil, salt and pepper. That's it.
Both Robert and Margaret would come every Valentine's Day, and Marguerite would get there in the early afternoon and lay their table with rose petals. And she would spell out I love you or do hearts. And the two of them together on Valentine's Day at the French Laundry is a moment in time every year that I cherished.
He was a prince. He definitely was a prince, and understood really early, before pretty much everybody, how together food and wine, how great partners food and wine were.
Mr. Mondavi was very encouraging to me as a young writer. I met him when I was 26. And early on, this was a point in time where people were very interested in getting any type of media coverage, and wine was just getting started. You know, the Paris tasting had just happened. And one day he came up to me, and I don't know exactly why, but he said, you know, your job is to be critical of the wine industry, and you know, you don't have to be a cheerleader, and you don't, you know, we don't need people to tell us we're doing great, we're doing good, to pat us on the back. We need people to observe and to critique us. And that stuck with me. I was a very young writer and had no business being a critic. Yet, you know, as I grew as a writer, even though there were times when we would conflict and have different perspectives, you know, he never lost his cool, even though we would disagree about certain wines or certain themes.
When I was a general manager at Trevigny in St. Helena, he and Marguerite came in. This was probably 1997. It was a slow Tuesday just before Christmas. He ordered a bottle of the Reserve Cab, the 1996, and he immediately asked for a glass of water with ice, which he poured the wine right over. So I have phenomenal memories of Mondavi because that's the way they drank the wine in the old country, he said to me.
I remember one day sitting in his office, and he said, Robin, you have to focus. And I said, but Bob, Mr. Mondavi is what I called him at the time. Mr. Mondavi, I can't focus. I have lots of interests, lots of things that excite me. And I said, you're lucky. You know, you started out being an apple, and you'll be an apple until the day you die. For me, I'm a fruit basket. He said, that's awful. That's for the birds.
Everybody says, you know, what's the difference between Napa and Sonoma? And I always say Robert Mondavi.
Now we talk about a global wine community and global wine terms. A lot of that genesis is with Opus One. So if you kind of look back and pull back some of the stuff and you say, well, where did all this international stuff start?
I'm not sure there would be a Napa without Robert Mondavi. You know, we are all here in largely indebted to his worldly thinking that we could be something beyond just an agricultural and agrarian community. We're not just a bunch of farmers. We're a world-class wine-producing community, and he taught us that was achievable.
There wouldn't be an opera house. There wouldn't be a symphony. And the wine auction itself was started by Bob and Mr. Martini, where we're at right now. And who knows if we would have had this, but he never said anything wasn't possible, and he made us all believe it.
We would, I think, have gotten there, but it would have taken 10 years or more longer. He set the stage for us, and we've all followed him. He paved the way.
I'm sure it would be, in many ways, the wonderful place it is, but there's absolutely no doubt that he was the spiritual and literal mentor for basically everyone that has followed.